order, please. Can everybody stand, say the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a roll call, please.
Jerry Zaharis here.
Alan Angel here.
Wen Jorgensen here.
Thank you. Janet Prentice here. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest on
Is Lee here?
tonight's
Wait,
item?
let
Lee,
Lee
can
talk.
we get an audio from you?
Alan, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yep.
Who's that?
that's Lee.
Lee.
Okay.
Really.
Hi, Lee.
Hi.
Do we have any conflict of interest in any of the items we're going to speak about tonight? And can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The introduction, we have introduction of public hearing on amendments 1010-050 RE Rural Estate Zone. Discussion and possible recommendation on 1010-050 RE Rural Estate Zone. That's out in Bubbling Wells. And I'd like to kind of do 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 at the same time because they're the same thing. And so we have a general map, amendments to the general map to make that the kind of area we want to out of Bubbling Wells. Does anybody have anything to say?
Sorry, could you clarify one more time? When you said you want to combine 1 and 2 and 5 and 6, are you talking about meeting agenda items?
Yes.
So in order to, the meeting has to be structured such that we can rearrange any items on the agenda, but a public hearing for the rural estate zoning language
Okay.
must be done separately from the hearing on the.
I don't want to do them one right after another because they are the same thing.
Okay.
Okay? And is that okay?
Yeah,
So
Okay.
you'd like to move item number 5 to be after item number 1. The
After.
public hearing for the general plan map you want to do after the public for the rural estate.
Right. So this is all the land up at Bubbling Wells being, having 5 acres
Can you mute
plus.
your-
This is really weird.
oh, my laptop?
Yeah,
I'm not on audio on my laptop.
okay.
This is having Bubbling Wells area be 5 rural estate zones, 5 acres plus. Does anybody have any comments on that?
No, wait a minute. Are we doing, we're doing agenda item 5 first?
One first.
Well, then that has nothing to do with Bubbling Wells. Right?
This is
This is this is the horses.
Yeah.
And
so I think
excuse me. The purpose of this zone is to provide permanent area for hobby farms, small farms, limited agricultural development for personal use. Permitted use is permitted in the zone, and it goes on. I don't know who's got does everybody have an agenda? No. Single dwellings, not less than 1,200 square feet on the main floor. Accessory buildings and uses following issuance of building permit for a permanent.
Are you going to
dwelling.
read this whole thing?
might I
Yeah.
suggest that we only review the changes?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
reasonable.
The changes is going to be on B11, animal allowance restrictions. I had a question on 10, keeping of animals and fowl for family food production, but not for commercial use. Does that mean you can't sell to your neighbors?
In rural estate zones,
I buy from my neighbors, so I just wonder if we want to strike that.
I mean, the spirit of it, I think, is such that if it's just neighbor to neighbor,
Yeah,
certainly
Okay.
we get, I think that's fine. That's not necessarily commercial, right?
okay. Oh, I just wanted clarification on that.
Yeah, I think the intent here is that if you open some kind of
There's a-
retail
Yeah, there's a
operation.
number
or,
of people in the neighborhood that sell eggs.
Oh, we get our eggs from right up the road here. Yeah, I don't want that shut down.
And,
Us too.
you know, that's really it's a small business, but it's probably not even a permitted, you know, they probably don't have a
Yeah,
license or anything.
That's what I'm guessing.
And
So technically not commercial, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Technically not commercial.
So I think we're good based on that,
Okay.
right?
Do you mind if I provide kind of an overview and then we can open the public hearing and then we can move to the planning commission discussion on the?
Okay, should we read?
That's
that?
great. Please, Ben, yeah.
I drafted this based on, the discussion from the March 11th meeting. I took
Yeah.
the discussion and
Mhm.
interpreted that. I put in, a lot of Alan's suggested language. Basically, what this changes is it changes the point system to,
Yours on yours, you said it was echoing, so I didn't turn mine up at all.
Well, I can't really hear this.
Well, let's see if we can turn it up. You can hear it here.
okay, so I muted all again. So
Okay.
what this does is, it changes the point allocation from 1 acre increments to quarter acre increments. So if you have 1 1/4 acre, you're allowed an additional 25 points on the point system. It reduces the points for large animals, those are cows, horses, donkeys, and mules, and pigs to 25 points each instead of 50 points, what it was previously.
Yes,
And the maximum is 10 large animals on any 5 acres. It defines the size of the medium-sized animals, the point of measurement for the withers, which is just a clarification item, and reduces the point value of those medium-sized animals to 8 points from the original 25 points. It also limits limits on from any lot to that. There was this language throughout the code that said on any lot, and that changed to per 5 acres.
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay.
So that was throughout. Turkeys, geese, pheasants, are no longer assigned a point value, rather given an allowance of 20 medium fowl per 5 acres. Chickens, on the other hand, were given, a value of 30, allowable 30 per 5 acres,
and only one rooster.
1 rooster
And
per
again,
1
per 5
acre,
acres.
yeah,
so the only animals subject to the point system are the large and medium animals. Just to
yeah,
Exactly.
clarify,
basically
yeah.
everything's the same. And how about llamas?
That's a
Um,
large animal, right?
Yeah, so I think it should count, because we have no exotic animals should be kept in, we were not bubbling wells, and there are llamas out there. And a lot of women use them for,
Yeah, I think that's
Oh.
covered under similar large animal,
Right.
right?
okay,
Yeah.
I would think so.
So,
and ostriches and
It's
things
not
like that.
exotic.
So the next was a suggestion of the resident that the planning commission appeared to agree with, which was allowing school-aged Apple Valley residents participating in a 4-H or FFA program
mhm.
with the intent to sell, within 12 months, not being subject to the point system.
Right.
We also added and this is kind of outside the code, but it allowing a location at town hall as a place for convenience for the disposal of animal waste. We
And
haven't designated that place yet, but we're just putting it in code to give people a reason or the ability to clean up.
Well, and we can also come and get it for our gardens too, right? Okay,
Mhm.
This code was also modified to impose a penalty, which is an infraction. So an infraction is not a misdemeanor, for those not familiar with that. It is not subject to jail time, it's only punishable by a monetary penalty
nothing on your permanent
of
record.
up to $750. The remainder, there are a couple other red lines, those are just typos that existed in the code.
Mhm.
So that would be I think the overall summary of what this code change is suggesting.
Okay, I think it's all very reasonable.
Mhm.
So,
Can I make one comment before we open the public comment section? Because we got a lot of comments both in person and in writing from folks up in the Gooseberry that particular subdivision, who indicated some desire to have fewer rather than more.
Yes.
And so to them, this could seem like a explicit reversal of what they want. You know, I'm sympathetic to that. However, there's a great remedy already baked into the system. That particular area is already a development with its own set of CC&Rs,
Yeah.
which unfortunately the town itself can't police because CC&Rs are basically agreements among private individuals, and the town has no business being involved in that. However, the CC&Rs are pretty explicit about limiting the number of horses per acre to 2 in that particular subdivision. So for those people, you're covered. You just have to police that amongst your own HOA.
We don't have an HOA.
You have a CC&R that allows for the creation of one.
No,
Yes,
no.
I have a copy of it if you'd like
It
to see
only
it.
allows for an architectural review committee.
Right, which you could.
Because it's not an HOA, we don't collect dues. It's not an HOA.
Baked into your CC&Rs, okay, so for those of you who live there, if you've created a set of CC&Rs that you can't police, there's nothing the town can do about that. So I would encourage you to somehow get together. What you can do as a group is to get together, as far as I know legally, and update your CC&Rs.
I'll understand with, my name is Richard Wasowski, 1024 Westville Opinion Way. I've got $6,000 into the court costs as of now, fighting to keep our area clean. The attorney is willing to do that, fence signal. He is the attorney for the CCRs, and I was in contact with him no more than weeks ago in his office for an hour. What he's saying to change it, we got 91 lots, we need 60% of those lots in order to change our CCRs, and they would love to change them. The trouble is, a lot of people, there's 41 vacant lots, they don't even answer our letters. We used to put a mail out every 2 years for an election for Architecture Review Committee. The return on it was $60 in stamps, and out of the 40 lots, we maybe got 2 back. So nobody gets involved, and they're all over the country that own these lots. And there's a number of people that would prefer to leave Gooseberry as it is with a dirt road, and it's my property, I can do as I please. There's a number of residents out there. There is a dozen residents out there that has donated to this $6,000. And we're already sitting in court right now for the last 3 years on the burners price out there. So it is quite a process to do it, and we would love to amend the CCRs. But to use them against, to correct the problem is so expensive. Our attorney says, come up with $20,000 and I'll do it. It's $250 an hour. And so that's the reason we've kind of pulled away from it.
Okay.
And the only thing the CCRs are used for is for, and I put them out where my wife does. And people pick them up all the time, the copies. And what they'll do, and they just called my wife 2 days ago if somebody's gonna build a house, Ben knows about it. And they just turn in the plans to the Architectural Review Committee. There was an election, we haven't counted the votes yet. One person on the Architectural Review Committee just moved out there, Tana just moved. Her and another person is the only ones in the Architectural Committee. So those CCRs are so big that they.
I can appreciate that. I guess I brought that up,
Or
not to get involved in.
online and have the comment.
Okay.
Regarding CC&R.
Yeah, great. Let's hear it.
We'll go ahead and flash.
All right, and without reading, having read these particular CC&Rs, generally anyone who is subject to the CC&Rs has a private right of action. They don't necessarily need to go through an HOA in order to enforce
Who is
the CC&Rs on their neighbors.
Okay.
And I'm assuming I'm unmuted and you heard that.
Yeah, anyone on Zoom, please state your name and your address, just like a regular meeting.
Sean Guzman. And for the record, we don't need to state the addresses
Okay,
online. Just,
I just want
just,
your name.
yeah. Okay.
Because I can't see who it is.
Okay, so, yeah, thank you for that clarification. I guess I brought that up just specifically to note to all the people that took the trouble to write letters and emails and make phone calls and even stop you on the street and so on, that we feel your pain as a planning commission. These changes are the result of what we feel like the town as a whole, the population as a whole,
The greater town.
wants. We totally understand that in particular neighborhoods, and particularly those that have a defined development, are within their rights to create their own set of rules and so on. And the good news is you have a rule. it somehow just has to be policed. And so I just want to make sure that obviously we haven't voted on this, but I don't want it to feel to anybody like we're ignoring you. We took very serious. Excuse me?
I think you are.
You didn't.
Because
Okay. Anyway, I was making a statement, not asking for commentary. I do want to just note that I personally read all of the letters that were delivered and emails and so on, and took them seriously. The town is to one degree or another, not surprisingly, in today's political environment, split. But more people want the changes that are represented in this document than don't. And those that don't, at least some of them, have a remedy. Now, I understand it's a painful remedy, but it at least is a remedy. And I hope that to whatever extent, to one degree or another, you can find a way to police that amongst yourselves. I dug in this afternoon to do some research to figure out to what extent the town itself was capable of helping residents themselves follow these CC&Rs, and I could find nothing that would legally allow us to do that. And so unfortunately, you're sort of on your own.
And I think the fine for not following the code is what we could do to help, so that you wouldn't have the flies, the smells, and a lot of the problems that you were having out there.
So I guess we do need to have a public comment period, and you got control of the mouse, so you decide how you want to do that.
So
Let's open this up for public comment.
Thank you. Might I suggest that we first start with, we have 2 callers, and callers cannot easily unmute themselves.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we first unmute the 2 callers and ask if they have any public comments.
Great.
Okay.
Right?
Good idea.
So we have the 2 callers are telephone numbers 877-1225 and the number ending in 1996. Do either of you have any public comments for this public comment? You are unmuted.
This is for animal restriction.
Okay, given that they are not responding, we'll go ahead and mute them again. And at this point, I would
think you've got
suggest that people can unmute themselves.
You've got a couple people in the chat that have already asked for, so we might as well just go in that order, right?
Perfect.
Have them state their name, please.
Can you see the chat? Could you invite them?
Yeah, can I take this?
This is Pam Doyle, and I would be first. If you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
So can I give you my comment then?
Yes.
Pamela Quayle, and I live on Smithsonian Road. And I think that in 1 acre subdivisions, it's just very excessive to have 4 horses or large animals, period, on 1 acre. And, you know, even before the 2 horse or animal ordinance, we had 3, and now you're excessively putting it up to 4. You know, it worked for years at 3. Nobody was complaining. I feel it's just being changed because the town doesn't want to enforce the ordinance that we have. I've had a terrible problem for the last year, and this is just to tell you what can happen. I had a neighbor move in last fall with 5 horses. It wasn't 2 weeks until I couldn't go outside to look at the night sky without the stench just burning my eyes and my nose. The night air holds it down, the wind dies down. And then we couldn't sit out inside in the daytime because these people do not clean their animals at all. And we couldn't work in the garden without being uncomfortable, couldn't open the house windows. Then the flies came. Every time we opened the door, the flies rush into the kitchen. That's not only uncomfortable, it's unhealthy.
Unsanitary.
Very unsanitary.
Yeah.
And I don't know, how can you regulate this? I mean, how can you decide that the enclosures aren't being cleaned regularly? Are you going to allow an enforcement officer onto the property? How deep does the manure have to get? How are you going to measure the smell? How are you going to enforce that? How can you measure the number of flies? How are you going to enforce that? I mean, we really suffered last fall, and now it's not so bad. But I just expect this to start again as soon as summer and fall come. I want to invite anybody that votes for this ordinance to come on over. Give me your telephone number. I'll call you. You can come over and enjoy it with me if you want to have this many animals on 1 acre. If we had an interior lot, do you know that 20 animals could surround that house, maybe be 100 feet away? That's 20 animals on 5 acres. And you're saying a 5 acre lot can only have 10 animals? It just doesn't make any sense at all to me. Will you please tell me, how are you going to enforce this? I know you have a fine, but how are you going to enforce that?
Can you tell me how you, how does changing it to 2 change your scenario? I mean, if
well, it's 2 now, and so they did have to move some of the animals off of the property, but now they have back on 4 again. And you know, so that I know it's going to stay this way if that's what you're allowing.
Yeah, I at least from my perspective, I can, and this showed up a lot in the survey results, that people are very concerned about the nuisance factor, and that's regardless of how many animals are allowed. I think at least our attempt in these changes was to make a specific reference to a fine for a violation. So that allows there to be some teeth to this ordinance.
How are you going to measure that? How are you going to enforce it? That's what I want to know. Do you have something written out for that? Are you going to allow the enforcement officer onto the property? That's not allowed at the time now, as I understand.
Hey,
We've got an enforcement officer here, so I guess you can get that direct from his mouth.
I just want to let you know, Pam, I'm here at the meeting.
Thanks, Rich.
Seen how much trouble I went to try to remove those horses.
You know, I have no fault with you. I just want to know how they are going to enforce what they say is going to work for us.
Yeah.
And if you have responsible people, it'll work. But if you have irresponsible people like I do next door, how's it going to work?
Yeah, and I can totally appreciate that. I think that this isn't the only issue for which we need to do a better job of enforcement. And as far as I know, that's a discussion.
But this is the one you're changing.
I understand, but again, the issue here is enforcement, and it's, you know, one of the things that the Planning Commission has to do is to factor in the needs of the entire town and match that with what in our case, what the general plan suggests. And
how many 1 acre subdivisions are there in the town?
I don't have that number. Does anybody know how many there are?
There's 7.
7 1-acre subdivisions?
Oh, there's 7 subdivisions, 7 separate sets.
Oh, yeah, I don't know whether they're all 1 acre.
And out there is half acre, acre, and 2 acre. Around here is 1 acre, 1/2 acre minimum. And then
Okay,
across the street's all acre minimum, and Cedar Point's 1/3 acre. And then Bubbling Wells area is 5 acres plus.
yeah. And these again are just, these are the rural estate zones in particular. Pam, thank you for your comments, and I'm sure there'll be other people that want to
I
make
really hope
similar
that you
comments.
will put into your ordinance how you're going to enforce it. You should have
I
that
hear
figured
you.
out before you change the ordinance.
Yeah, we made an attempt at doing that. I'm hearing from you, you don't think that it's strong enough.
I
That's
just
accurate.
don't know how you're going to measure it. Tell me how you'll measure it.
I don't know how you measure smell. I wish there was
Well,
some
you're
scale.
saying that you will.
Yeah.
You're
it's a good
saying that they'll
question.
have to have a fine, but how will you measure it?
Good question. We called it a nuisance. I suppose thank you for your comments. We gotta, this is not supposed to be a conversation between two people.
I
Sorry.
appreciate that. I just hope that you will realize it's a terrible problem, and
I hear
in
you.
1-acre
Yeah.
subdivisions, it's too much.
Gotcha. And by the way, where you live in particular, the remedy is baked into your CCNRs relative to the number of animals.
That
It doesn't
they're
address
worthless.
nuisance.
We can't afford to keep them, to enforce them. We have to rely on the town. You're the only hope that we have of being able to enjoy our property. I feel like my right is being stolen from me.
No, wait a second here. I mean, there'd be people that live in an area that don't have CCNRs and who want even more than 4 horses. So are you suggesting that your needs are greater than theirs somehow?
I'm not, but I think that people that want to have a lot of horses should have enough land to take care of the horses in a way that's good for the horses as well as their neighbors.
Mhm, mhm.
Agree.
Yeah, and I completely agree that,
Yeah.
that people need to care for their animals. And we made an attempt in these changes to
Well, we're not moms and
beef this
dads.
up. So let's move on to the next
Next
commenter,
question.
please, because
Thank you, Pam.
yeah, thank you, Pam. I feel your pain. I do.
Just a reminder that commenters need to unmute themselves.
So there was Sean Guzman indicated in the chat. Sean, do you have a comment?
We still got Pam up. There we go.
If Sean doesn't want to comment, then Diane, I think, was the next one that posted in the comment section. Do you have something to say, Diane? You have to unmute.
Just what I said. The issue is not the number of animals, but how they're cared for and
Sure.
how they're cleaned up after.
Okay, thank you for that. We have 24 other people in this online meeting room. You're welcome to share your piece. Now's your chance. Let's get these folks here a chance to speak, and then we'll come to you. No other comments? Well, that's a little surprising, given all the
Okay, yeah.
emails and letters we got.
I don't see what we can do besides.
We have one back
I
here.
have a couple of comments.
Sure.
Okay, the survey that was sent out, it showed, the majority wanted limitation on horses versus the minority. And if you do it like that with shipping containers, you said the majority of people want these shipping containers. So why isn't that survey used the same way as, the shipping container survey was? Margaret Osowski.
The animal survey was, pretty much about
No.
51%,
It was
was
54 to 50.
54 to 50.
Do you have those survey results handy by any chance, Ben? We
On
could look at?
limiting the horses.
Yeah, on placing a limit, for sure. And we're placing a limit. We're not just saying, hey, it's a
Well,
free
I'm
for all.
just saying that those people want limits on horses.
Yes, which and there definitely are limits.
Oh, come on.
Horses are considered large animals.
Come on, Alan, don't play the little, twisting words around.
I'm using your words. You said people
Well,
wanted
okay, I'll
limits
use
on
the
horses.
survey word.
Let's take a look and see
Yeah,
how.
take a look. So then the survey's flawed.
Okay, that's the one we're looking for. And horse owners.
Okay, let me just share this with Zoom. Give me a moment. So the question here is, what, if any, should be the total number of allowable large animals per acre zoned RE? The number of respondents that said no limit was 36%, 5 was 11%, and 4 was 18%. So those values combined would be that would be what you're
No,
looking
it
for,
wasn't
everything
that one,
4
it
and
was the other
over?
one. Where's the little, it wasn't a pie-shaped one, it was the other one.
Well, so this is the question that you're wanting to address.
This
The
is
number
the
of respondents
question we are
that
addressing.
that should, how many animals should there be per zoned acre? And if you add 4 and above,
You get 64. So 64% people said 4 or more horses. That's a pretty overwhelming.
What, get the other one up.
what's the question that you're wanting to?
Let's see the survey, because there was another thing on the survey showing that people wanted,
That's the survey there.
I know, but there was another part of that survey.
There's multiple questions throughout. I'm wondering what it is that you're actually wanting to
I think
address.
it's the last one,
It was the bars were at.
it was the bar graph.
What was the question?
I don't know,
Okay, it's hard for me to pull up a response if you don't know the question that you're wanting to address.
well, I know one of those survey questions was, it showed that the non-horse owners wanted more restrictions, basically.
Yeah,
how I
that's
read it.
completely
That's how I read it.
understandable. I would expect that to be the result. If you don't have horses, you.
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
This is the one you're talking about here.
But so that pie graph represents.
It wasn't the pie.
But
graph.
let me finish my statement.
Okay.
That pie graph represents all respondents, people who have horses and people don't. When you add them all up, 64%, that's a pretty overwhelming majority, want 4 or more. So we took the lower limit of that and applied that to this ordinance. I don't know how you could be any more fair
Well,
when you're representing the
really-
needs of the entire town. If you,
well, I guess, my other question is, if you have 5 acres and you can have 10 horses, so that the ratio is 2 horses per acre. And then on 1 acre, you can have 4 horses, so explain to me why that ratio is so weird.
Lopsided.
Yeah,
what we were saying is, we just didn't want it to be 20 horses on 5 acres. That just seems unreasonable. So we placed the upper cap.
that would be 4 horses per acre. So why
With an up-
do those people penalize and you're giving 1 acre people 4 horses, but 5 acres?
Wait a second, I'm confused. Do you want more or less? It sounds like now you're advocating for more
I'm
horses.
just asking, why is it so different?
It's to place an upper limit so that we don't have fields of 20 horses on every 5 acre lot.
But you'll have lots of 20 horses out here.
No, we
If
won't.
everybody puts 4 horses on a lot,
Then you'll have 4 horses on a lot.
Yeah,
okay, and so if you have 5 lots with 4 horses, you got 20 horses.
I'm confused. It sounds like you're advocating for us to get rid of that limit.
They're showing the graph.
Okay, right.
Mm,
Well, here, I have this.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. I think what that does is it does point out that,
I thought that this is exactly
you know,
what we
this
were
is
going for.
pretty close to what the town
68%.
wants. And the,
Okay, well, I guess that's what the town wants.
and again, not to harp on this, but the folks up on that, you have a CCNR that limits it to 2.
Well,
So,
aren't I allowed to speak?
yeah, no, you can. But I'm saying, if, for those of you in that particular area,
it's specific, this is specific to Gooseberry.
Yeah.
It could be, those lots could be, I could pull up down here, and it could be the same thing.
And half of them are clipped.
But 64% of the
agree.
people said that they want 4 or more horses.
Well, that's 64% said they did. I looked at that wrong, apparently.
Okay. Are there any other we'll give one more shot for the people online.
So Mayor Linsby indicated one more time that maybe a new phone call came in. So I'm
Okay.
going to go ahead and unmute the callers. So caller ending in 1996 and caller ending in 1225, you are both unmuted. So if you have a public comment, please express that now.
Well, this is Justin Cannon, and you know, we moved out here years ago for country living to have our animals and enjoy the country. So, you know, we're for the horses, and I think you guys are doing a pretty good job with the changes you're making.
Thank you. Because this is country living.
You know, since we're in the comments time, I'd love to hear, and if anybody has any suggestions, even experience with strengthening enforcement language, I would love to have a suggestion or two made if that's, if
You know, I
anybody's
think
got any.
I
We
agree
put
with
this,
that.
this infraction in here, and that needs to be defined a little more as to how we're going to handle that infraction.
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
pretty,
maybe that has to be a separate item.
it's pretty clear that, you know, quantity is easy to determine, right? If you've got 5, you're supposed to have 4,
Yeah.
we'll write you up.
You should
What's
have five,
harder
but
to
you should-
figure out is what is nuisance. One person's nuisance is another person's just lovely country smell. You know, so, but again, I would love to, if anybody's got any ideas about how to strengthen that language in here,
Because that seems to be our
Love to
only
hear it.
sticking point.
yeah.
And we may have to make that a separate, totally separate item, you know.
Yeah.
It's in here, and this is fine, but how to handle that is a whole separate
Yeah.
item.
I mean, we make specific reference to noise and smell, nuisance, and I think those are the big issues.
Noise, smells, and bugs.
Yeah,
Flies.
the flies can be the worst thing.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I thought I had something about pests in my original version of this.
Yes,
Does
there
that-
was.
we should probably add that back in if we're, but anyway, does anybody have any suggestions about that, how to strengthen the,
Here, I got, as a
Language.
code enforcer, you're gonna create a nightmare for me. And I've, Rich Osowski, 1024 West Opinion, out in Gooseberry. I don't mind writing up anybody that's in violation, whether it's a neighbor or they live next to me. The problem with 4 horses and 3 horses, and we've had a number of horses, we're down to 1 horse, is that if you clean them, now that you got the Torqueville thing, so you looked at what they do there. Of course, they're limited to 3 horses. But if you leave 4 horses, and I think you've got, how many horses you have?
we have 2, but we have
Okay, 2
plenty of
horses.
acreage.
You know, after a week of not cleaning 4 horses, can you imagine how much manure you will have piled up?
Mhm.
And then it depends the amount of area. The bigger the area, but you know what a horse does? A horse poops in one spot.
Most
A
of the time.
horse pees in one spot.
Mhm.
And so it builds up in that one area. And so to me, to write them up, if I get a call and somebody says, I haven't seen anybody out there cleaning those 4 horses for a week or 2, then I gotta go there and I gotta write them up. And then the system that we have with Ben in the town is to get a nuisance complaint 30 days. So I give them another 30 days. And then after 30 days, they say, well, I wonder how much poop they have after 30 days. Then we gotta go to court. So that takes time too. And Rachel is the prosecutor. And right now, Rachel is really busy because the court system is in a kind of a disarray. So it may take a year. So this is what it's gonna cost me, and I'm gonna get calls like Pam. And I've been to her property a half a dozen times. So the enforcement on my
Okay.
part, I don't see it's gonna happen.
Well, here's what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
is that we have an enforcement problem.
Yeah,
It wouldn't matter whether or not we limited it to one horse. The number, the quantity itself isn't going to change things.
it adds to the pile.
I understand, but my point is, we have an enforcement problem in the town.
If they're not taking care of
And-
one horse, they're not gonna take
What's the
care of the three.
possibility of,
Yeah,
They can't be their parents.
putting a lien on properties or immediately?
Well, I mean, we put this violation, this infraction fine in here. I don't think that would have to go through the courts if it's in here.
No, I think.
I
it
mean,
goes
I don't
straight
even think it's even a
to-
30-day waiting period. This is not a nuisance complaint. This is an actual violation, an infraction.
but at some point, you're gonna have to go to court because they say they're not gonna do it. That's kind of being still.
Isn't there a way?
Well, I mean, I can go to court if I get caught speeding on the highway. Doesn't mean I'm gonna win.
No.
So, I mean, there's nothing we can do about that. I hope we all can agree, right? There's no language we could put in here that would make people pay a fine
And we can't be their
without going to
parents.
court. Okay, so that's not something we can debate,
Yeah.
I don't think. What I'm asking is if there's anybody that's got any information, experience of how to craft language such that it can be much more easily enforced. That's what I'm looking for.
We used
Paul
to
Edwards.
lien, we used to lien properties all the time, in a condo situation.
Yeah, but again, I'm not talking about what's the infraction. I'm talking about how do we know when an infraction has been made? Right now, we're calling it, we simply say animals must not be allowed to become a noise or smell nuisance. Well, that's a little subjective. I agree. What one person might
I
think
think
it's a
that
nuisance.
the
another.
fly should be inserted back into that also.
Just for clarity, nothing was removed.
Okay.
Can I read a public comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's not able to come through here. So this is from Christy Jorgensen. She states, "We bought and moved here 17 years ago with the dream to raise our family and retire with animals in an open agriculture environment. My ideas and thoughts are we need to keep and preserve this way of life for others and future generations. Washington County is losing this lifestyle, and those wanting it will be forced to move out of our beautiful area. We have an opportunity to be unique and not fall into the same mold as our neighboring towns with unnecessary restrictive town codes and regulations. Most of my friends and neighbors moved here to get away from that. I also feel very strongly that we should not push our ideas."
Another.
Sorry, I had to scroll and then lost my place.
Down. Keep going down. There you go.
"Our ideas and likings onto our friends and neighbors through town codes and laws. Yes, I agree, we need to be able to respect each other's property rights, but not to the point of taking away those same rights from residents."
That's the
Agreed.
other side. Okay.
Agree.
You know, as far as enforcing or considering what a nuisance is maybe we have a committee of 3 people that go out and review anything that comes up from our
How do you
inspection.
feel about that? Having the
Take
onus
pic-
taken
have
off of one
somebody
person?
Take pictures.
And the 3 people have somebody that's not a horse owner and somebody that is a horse
Sure.
owner. because
I'm a
otherwise-
non-horse owner.
Yeah.
I've
And
got to
that
take
would be
pictures.
fine. Then they can give a recommendation. It's the time frame that I'm worried about.
Yeah,
The time frame will drag on because of the violations I write now, they're still on the books.
yeah, they
And
can't.
this has been months later, so if you could narrow down the time
Mhm,
frame for
mhm.
me,
I think the time frame has to be, within a 2-week period or really a 1-week period even, because like you say, it's building, that manure doesn't go away,
Yeah.
it just
and
keeps
if you have
building.
4 horses, they produce a lot of manure. I would agree with you. I would say change the time frame. If they have a week to clean it, and if you go back and it's not cleaned, and you can pretty well tell what 4 horses will do.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
And the thing with that is, then give them a week. And then it's a violation notice.
Because it can go in the garbage and we,
Yeah.
Well, and it can go down, it can go here.
Yeah.
We're providing a spot for it. So.
Notice, instead of 30 days, put in a week.
Now, I wonder, this begs the question of whether or not, I mean, if it's a good idea to have a committee of people to determine whether or not somebody's in violation about manure, then it strikes me that there are any number of potential violations
we
that
got
that same group could determine, right?
manure.
Absolutely.
Does our attorney or Ben or
Sean,
Marty or anybody have anything to say about the pros and cons of the Planning Commission recommending the creation of an enforcement committee? Maybe there's probably a better name for it. Anybody want to chime in on that?
Yes, this is Sean Guzman. I don't recommend the committee. I can tell you that really most of the time when we have a nuisance violation that involves flies or smells, what we need are witnesses. What we need are pictures of the flies that people have. We need evidence to be able to show court, should someone decide to challenge that, that yes, there was a violation, there were odors that carried into not just the neighbor's yard, but oftentimes when we've had these complaints, it's been people that have been in their homes. And so we've had an officer go in their home at their invitation, of course, and with the doors and the windows closed, they could still smell the odors, but also when the odors are really strong in the yard, those types of things. If you have neighbors, more than one neighbor, in St. George, the default is three neighbors that complain about noise or something else of that nature. You also can use that. So if you have other witnesses, other neighbors that step forward, that is really the most important thing. And the other comment that was brought up about leaning someone's property and HOAs, those are very different laws. And the HOA's ability to lien properties is derived out of a person's non-payment of HOA fees or dues, not necessarily a nuisance ordinance like ours. And so we would not be liening someone's property, but I think an infraction strikes a good balance because you're not, as Ben pointed out, you're not talking about jail time for individuals, but you are saying, look, this is something to take serious. And then lastly, going to the time frame. I'm not sure that you want to spell a time frame out in the ordinance because a lot of times you need to be flexible. For example, we've had cases where someone's husband's died and they don't have the ability to clean up as often as they did before. And so if you put in, you have a week, that's a very short time frame to clean it up by the ordinance. And understandably, you could say you have more than a week because of your situation, or you could get the neighbors to come and do something in 3 weeks or something of that nature, or you have someone that's helping you, but they won't be able to do it in a week. It would take them 2 weeks to get it all cleaned up and then stay on top of it. So I just don't think a time frame in the ordinance needs to be spelled out because you can still say in your letter, your enforcement letter, you have 7 days to either clean it up or contact us in case they have some extenuating circumstances that you want to consider. That's it.
Those are all reasonable points. The first thing you mentioned, you made reference to an officer going into a home to test, whether or not you can smell that. What would be the equivalent of a police officer in Apple Valley?
It would be a Rich going in as the code enforcement officer if he wanted, if someone invited him in. Yeah. But remember, it doesn't have to be an officer. It can be witnesses too. That say, look, yeah, I'm willing to testify that I was at Pam's house and I've been there on 3 separate occasions in the last week where we were in the kitchen and the smell was so bad that we, had to spray Febreze or whatever it might be. But yeah, you can have other witnesses. Other neighbors are always good. And again, if you have some things, for example, if it happens to be noise, if you have recording of the noise and the time that that's occurring, or flies, if you're taking pictures of the flies, that also helps and note the time frames. But Rachel, your prosecutor, can give you some really good pointers on how to go about doing that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a code enforcement officer.
So from an enforcement standpoint, it does sound like it really, the onus is on both the town and the town's residents to see to it that these infractions get policed in some way. And I can appreciate the fact that it's difficult for one neighbor to document the smell, and so, I mean, we don't want to get our neighbors mad at us. But the town can only do so much without evidence, right? So I think that's one of the things one of the challenges we're having with enforcement is we're being asked to go do something on behalf of a neighbor that may be either anonymous or hasn't been able to get a couple more people to witness this. It sounds like if we can do better at that, we can do better at enforcement. Does that sound reasonable?
And I think pictures is necessary.
I take a lot of pictures. Ben will attest to that.
Yeah.
But the trouble with Gooseberry is an exception because of so many vacant lots. Pam, the woman that was up here, her neighbors, for one thing, and I'm not saying anything about the polygamists, they do not complain about anything. And that's one of her neighbors. I've been to their house.
Okay.
And they're nice people. But they will not say anything about anybody. And then her other neighbor is somebody that's kind of exclusive. They don't want to be bothered. And then her other neighbor is in violation because all her horses are on her whole lot. She fenced in her whole acre and lets her horses run wild. So now you got that situation. So I won't be able to get, and people do not like to complain or file nuisance complaints because they can be looked up with a gravel.
Sure.
So that wouldn't work. The only person that I got to complain and file a nuisance complaint was Pam and her neighbor, but the only reason I did that is because their neighbors know me very well. So
Yeah.
I would have to be over there taking pictures of flies and also taking a picture and measuring the pile as it gets deeper.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. All right. Yeah, there's not much we can do if people don't want to actually make a formal complaint. It sounds like that's one of the big challenges here is that people want the town taking it upon themselves to enforce things based on a
We can't
conversation at the
people
coffee
turn.
shop. And that's a slippery slope for a town to get involved in. I feel like we need formal complaints if we're gonna police them. We can definitely do a better job of enforcement, and Sean gave us some great tips about how to do that. Thank you, Sean.
Given that we're still in public comment, Debbie had a comment.
All right.
Or raised her hand.
Debbie, let's hear it.
It's actually Rich.
Go. Oh, never mind then.
Hey, there's one clause that says that for the convenience of residents, the town is going to, I guess, dig a hole in the back of the town hall, and you can bring your animal waste there. Now, I don't think it's the town's, you're advocating for more horses, more large animals, and now you're saying that the town is going to, you can bring your waste over to the town when the landfill already accepts waste on your regular garbage pickup. I don't think it's the town's responsibility to get involved in removing residents' waste, personally.
I agree that it's not the town's job, and just for clarification, it's this proposal is just to provide a space for people that don't have a place, a convenient place to dispose of waste. Basically what we're trying to do here, now we're not going to go collect it, you still got to bring it. So we're not disposing of it for them. But it was a way, one of the things that was pretty clear among all the both conversations and survey results and so on was that cleaning up after your animals is a big deal. People need to do that. And what I think this is in here to just provide one less barrier for people to make sure that they're keeping up with their waste.
Yeah.
It's if you want to muck out the stalls, but it piles up and then that makes your neighbors mad because flies show up and the smell. Well, at least now you got a place to go put it so that it's away from your neighbors.
And then,
I agree. I don't think it's the town's job to do that. It's just a convenience.
But all you have to do is put it in a plastic bag. If you got a garbage bill, you get garbage pickup. You can get rid of the waste. It's that simple. So you might have to get a couple of more garbage pails, but
That's what my neighbor, that's what my neighbor does.
responsibility of the animal, that's part
I
of
can
it.
appreciate that. And I hope people will still do that. And it could very well be that this option won't be, people won't avail themselves of it. The upside to doing it is that there's an after effect that's actually beneficial. So for people who want compost, gardeners and folks like that, this would be a great source of that type of material. And again, it's just a, uptick in the quality of life in Apple Valley, except for the person that has to shovel it every once in a while.
I got a solution to the problem.
Okay.
It will solve everything, even Rich's problem. Anybody that has 4 horses, or you could even start with 3 horses. Anybody, and actually, if you ask Rich, there's a neighbor across from him that actually does it. You can get a dumpster, a green little dumpster, and for a minimum amount of money for a year. And in that green dumpster, you can put your poop in it.
Sure.
And every week they will empty it.
And I hope people will do that. I think that's a great option.
I think that, and that would solve the fly problem because it's in a container. And also that would solve the problem where somebody maybe wants to clean twice a week. And with 4 horses, sometimes you need to do that.
That's what my neighbors do.
Yeah, and I hope people will do that. Again,
So if you could require them to have a dumpster, and I don't know if this is possible, it would close something for the flies, and it would also have a place for them to put the dumpster, which is right across from Rich's house. Anyway.
All right, that's a good.
Could be one of the recommendations made if they reach this $750 fine point, say, hey, there is a good solution for this. If you put this dumpster here and have it picked up weekly and use it, the fine can go away.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
it
good.
looks like we need to work on this more.
Yeah, do you think so? I mean, it feels to me like, based on that those last
Just
conversations.
the last 2 things, I like the idea of having the waste disposal here, because that means people like me can come pick it up for my greenhouses and my garden. I'm not a horse person, but I love everybody's poop.
People love compost.
So,
Now, Janet, that won't interfere with the functions, with the flies and the smell if we have some type of function.
You just have to make sure it's somewhere where it's,
It'll be away.
I hope so.
Well, the cemetery we're supposed to build out there, and I don't think we're gonna do that yet. That'd be a good place to start, because that'd be good starter for grass.
Just sprinkle diatomaceous earth on it, and it will cut the fly population down.
Oh, yeah, it's real easy to take care of.
There's ways to take care of it.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say you're not ready to make a recommendation
No,
at this
I
point.
am. I'm very pleased with all of this. And, but I think having witnesses and pictures to go along with enforce the punishable fine, I think that needs to be put in there. And, I'd be happy to go with Richard. If you got a problem, I'd be more than happy to go with you on this.
Yeah, Sean?
Yes, thank you, Sean Guzman. I don't think, as far as the disposal of the waste at the town hall, I don't think you need to put that in your ordinance. You could just do that by town policy or town practice. And so you could just take that completely out.
That's probably a good idea in case it goes away, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or that's for some hardship reason, you might need to change that. The other thing is you do not need to put in there about the documenting of the pictures or anything of that nature in that ordinance as well. So I would agree that it sounds like the ordinance itself is probably in a good state to make a recommendation tonight. And the other things, as you very well pointed out, have to do with enforcement and neighbors coming forward. All of those things you can't really legislate. So I think you could take action on the ordinance tonight if you feel comfortable in doing so.
Thank you, Sean.
That's kind of where I am too.
We've been working on this. Alan did a wonderful job on the writing of his ideas. And I'd like to see a motion on this.
So the next step would be to close public
Can we
comment.
close public comments, please?
Yeah, let's close. Who's that? Oh, I thought you were here. Yeah, go ahead. One last time.
Actually, well, Rich Cobb, well, Margaret Osowski, and, 4 horses do make a lot of poop, so that dumpster is probably a really good idea, because I had 3 and I couldn't get all of it into my 2 garbage cans.
Mm-hmm.
Also too, I just wanted to make a comment with all the, setbacks and stuff that you have, on your lots and stuff. That leaves really actually, an area for more 26 by 26. For them to roam around in.
Yeah, they shouldn't be roaming around a whole lot.
Well, I'm just saying, you
Yeah.
guys said that, I guess in the ordinance, something about an area for them to roam. Well, actually with all the setbacks and stuff, it leaves only, like each horse gets 26 by 26.
Okay, so we just added,
I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for pointing out that.
Yeah.
Because then there's the end of the
Yeah.
That's
So, public comments are closed now, right?
Yeah.
Or-
Can I
Yeah.
add one more thing to it? For the people that live up against the mountain,
oh, yeah.
when they live up against the mountain, their land is restricted quite a bit. It would be very difficult for them to put 4 horses when they only have with their house and everything. And if you look at Gooseberry, the whole side is a mountain. And if they'll put 4 horses on a little compound, I don't know if you need to put some footage with the amount of horses you have.
But you got it down here too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You get it down here where you're up against the mountain, and once you put a house on there, it doesn't leave you much room. And it seems like the horses they're all bunched together.
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to have shade with them, and so I don't know if you can. put
Yeah, I
something in.
I appreciate that comment, and that showed up a lot in some of the letters and emails and so on. The issue is that as soon as we put restrictions based on the contour of your land, somebody's gonna
then
say,
it's
oh, they've
getting
got
too
a hole in there,
convoluted.
they've got a ditch, or it's a never ending.
It gets
we-
too
yeah.
convoluted.
But my hope is that common sense will prevail, and if somebody's got a real half an acre instead of, they're not gonna put 4, let's hope,
Because the
right?
last thing is, if you see a horse, in my case, that we've had one in milk, it's in dire need, it's not getting fed or not having water,
Mhm.
Yeah,
evidently you can't call anybody in the state.
no, they don't take our calls,
They don't.
for animals.
They don't take calls for animal, so now, what as a code enforcer, what am I supposed to do if I see a sick animal or a sick horse?
I think this is diving again into enforcement.
Yeah,
which
it's enforcement. Yeah, I think we've addressed
Yeah.
that. I agree.
So we're gonna close public comment at this time.
So I'd like to make a motion that we make this recommendation to the town council to approve this with the one modification that we strike item number K, letter K there.
Okay.
I think Sean made a good point, that's something that we can just offer as a public good. Doesn't have to be part of the ordinance, and if it goes away, it goes away at some point. They don't have to adjust the ordinance after the fact. Did you get all that? That's a little wordy.
Yes, I did, as
Okay.
well as the link, adding your proposed language for pets. Did you want me to read that one more time?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
Yes, I pulled that up. Your draft language stated, noise, safety, pest, or smell nuisances that result from improper care of animals or property are strictly prohibited.
I like that. If you
Excellent,
could
that's
swap
right.
out J with that language,
Yes, that's much better.
then my motion will be spot on. Yeah.
Got it.
Reflect that.
I'll second that.
Can we have a vote, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Win, Lee?
Aye.
Aye. Win? Is she there?
When, I,
Okay.
All right.
Unanimous.
Thank you. And
Thank
thank
you
you
very
all for
much.
the comments. So you wanted to do,
Well, I wanted to do.
Number
I
5
think we have
next?
a lot of people on the line for the, yeah, I want to do the bubbling wells. I really do. we went out the other day and looked. And this area is marked high density, and it should not. It should be for farms, agricultural, and homes with large lots. And I think it should stay that way. And so I'd like to open a public hearing that the Bubbling Wells area stay low density. Do we have any comments?
This is Sean Guzman. Could you state which item number you're on?
We're on 5.
Number 5. Yeah, we skipped 2 and 3. We're going to come back to it.
Okay, so for the record, we'd like to say item 5, and that is introduction and public hearing on amendments to the Apple Valley General Plan map.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Right now,
Thank
it's listed as high density, and it's not made up for that. It is made up for low density. The roads, it's just beautiful out there, and it should stay that way.
So this is Sean Guzman. Are you opening the public hearing, or are you taking
Yes, we're
comment from
opening the public
the
hearing.
Planning Commission? Okay, great. And then after you close the public hearing, you could turn it back to discussion with the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we're open for comments. Is everybody clear on what we're commenting about?
They state 5 acres plus out there.
It may be helpful if I pull up if I share the map.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Colored one.
So this shows the current designation of the southeast corner of Apple Valley and the current designation of the general plan map.
Yeah.
So the yellow items are residential 1 acre, the red are residential ½ acre. And
The pink is,
agricultural.
yeah.
So my suggestion would be, if the planning commission desires to make a recommendation this evening, it would be to use the numbers included on this map.
The
So
RE,
yeah.
okay,
Okay,
So,
and so which
number 1.
number are we discussing?
5.
So I believe the discussions that have taken place so far, if my understanding is correct, it's this number 1 on the map, number 2, number 3, and number 4. And these could be rearranged,
Yeah.
you could redraw the map, but for simplicity purposes, I believe everything that the commission has been discussing is just encompasses these areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is one ½ acre development that's there now. And,
Number 3.
and there's manufacturing there. But the rest of it, like the ranch and everything that's out there, I think it should stay that way. And not be 1 acre lot.
So I think it makes sense at this point to move into public comments.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's hear it. Particularly from the people out that way.
I'm Rich and Debbie, this is for you guys.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, Rich Kopp. I guess 22 East Ranch Road, 222. Yeah, I agree 100%. It's all big parcels out there, 50-acre parcels. I own a 15. Frank owns 10, 12. And you got Bruce up on the hill. He owns the 50. Then you got Brown, who owns 220 acres. It's just huge parcels out there. I got one of the smaller ones, and I agree 100%. Pretty much, we just want to live out there with our big parcels and kind of be left alone. And I agree 100% that we make it low density, no doubt. That's
Thank
why
you.
people go out
Thank
there.
you, Rich.
Is there anybody else in the room that lives out there that this affects directly?
No.
Yeah, Alan, this is Lee. I live out here by Rich, unfortunately, but I'd like to say the 5 acres.
Now, who's this?
That was Lee.
Lee. Well, it's gonna be 5 acres and above out there.
Right.
Low density. And we want to change the map. So the map that we're going to be working on is gonna have all of that 5-acre RE5s and AGs out there. And then anything that isn't, can be open space transitional, and that way we can change it later to larger lots or agricultural.
In the chat window, we have Robert Campbell, who has made a comment. Please explain. Robert, do you care to expound on that comment? You can unmute yourself if you desire to make a comment there.
Yes, this is Robert Campbell. I think you did by putting the map up there on the screen. So thank you very much and explaining the exact areas and where you were talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Janet, I have a question, please.
Yes.
So basically from this map, sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, that's what's going to be the low density?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay,
I guess we'll close.
last chance, anybody else?
Okay, we're gonna close public comments on this.
Sorry, I was,
Hang on. Marty, did you want to say something?
yeah, I was going to. I was looking for my unmute button. Sorry for the delay. Hey, I just wanted to clarify, because you are talking about 5 acres and more, and really what we need to do is, you know, the current map right now is not the same thing as zoning. So we're not touching the zoning. We're only touching the general map description up there. And right now, the general map says 1/2 acre, 1 acre, and so forth. And that's not even an accurate description of what it should say. It should say just low density, medium density, high density.
Yeah.
And then in another place in our code, we identify what it does high density, low density, medium density mean. It's, you know, 5 acres or greater, 10 acres or more, or whatever. And so I just wanted to clarify that we're not changing this to, you know, 5 acre, you know, RE property or anything like that. It's just, you know, high, medium, or low density.
Can somebody, does anybody here have a definition of medium and low?
That's for you guys to define.
It is. So
I mean, currently, do we have a current definition?
we don't. So
Oh,
with,
okay.
with a motion this evening, if you were to take action on this, I would recommend that you define it. We will have to address, like the mayor said, we will have to address density in the general plan. We should have a table that defines what low, medium, and high is. I feel like tonight it would be sufficient to make a recommendation to the town council that you define that area as low density with that definition of 5 acres or greater.
That's what I was figuring, 5 acres.
Yeah, where I'm getting stuck, I guess, is, are we still in the public comment? Did we close it?
We haven't closed it yet.
All right, let's close it so we can talk.
Close the public
All right.
comment.
The only sticking point I'm having is that having not defined what those 3 terms mean, it strikes me as difficult. I would have a difficult time making a recommendation.
Okay,
If low density I mean, I could make a case that that's 10 or more acres. So
in the old code, low density was 5 acres to 20 and more.
so 5 and up. Okay.
In medium density was 1 to 2 acres, or 1 to 5 acres, excuse me, is medium density. High density is an acre and less.
Okay.
And that's just kind of.
So what we could do, if I would make a suggestion, if you didn't feel comfortable with that, we could not take action tonight. We could actually put the definitions in the general plan, which defines those low, medium, high, and then you can take action in the coming meeting without the public hearing being.
But do we need public hearing to define density? I don't, it doesn't seem like we would, but maybe
So
we
we
do.
open comment.
I think you would, because it's really, it would probably be an ordinance that did it, but you guys can go ahead and take action tonight, and then the town council can just sit on it until we get the other item as well from you. But at least
This has been on hold since August, this
Yeah.
item.
I mean, I'm suspecting that we're gonna keep definitions of densities pretty close to what Janet outlined. So I suppose given that, I'd be willing to make the recommendation to high density, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so. I think we might as well.
What do you?
This is
Yeah,
this
like-
is Sean Guzman. I've had my hand raised. I've been.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I've been trying to interject here. I did not realize that you did not have definitions for those medium, low, and high density. I recommend you don't take action until you have those definitions in your ordinance to make a recommendation to the town council on what those definitions are. And it wouldn't do you any good to move this along anyway if the council was going to wait for you to take action on those definitions. So best to just go ahead and get those defined, and also take a look at your ordinances overall to make sure that your new definitions don't conflict with anything else you might have in the language of your ordinances.
Okay, that's good. And I'm guessing at the same meeting, we could do both and,
Yeah,
right? So-
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Can't we go with what was first defined as low, medium, and high in 2004?
Well, the problem is we don't have it on the agenda. So I think we have to craft a new agenda, put this, let's just table this, and then put them both on the same agenda for a future meeting.
I'd like to have it done on the next meeting because we've really put this off. And
Yeah,
put it off,
assuming we
put it
don't
off.
need, I don't think we would need a public hearing
For
for
density, no.
defining density.
No.
So we should be able to do that at our next meeting, right?
Okay, so can we schedule that for the next meeting?
I think that given this
Um,
hearing was regarding the Apple Valley General Plan map,
Yeah.
I feel like we would need a public hearing to address the general plan. However, you could still address that in the next meeting with a public hearing. Sean, do you
Yeah.
have clarification on that?
Do we?
Yes, you definitely, because it's part of a zoning ordinance, you definitely need to have a public hearing on that.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, then we'll have to do
I know-
it based on timing, but the sooner the better.
yeah, next meeting, if we could, please. And I'll drag out the old code and we'll go with what the old code says, because it really makes a lot of sense. It's very common sense.
Okay. Debbie, we closed public comment, but since your hand's raised, we'll give you a quick 1 minute.
Okay, quick thing, because the low, medium, and high density, Janet just mentioned it because it was discussed in previous planning commission meetings. So if we have to look through the minutes to find a date, I'll do that, but it was previously discussed. on what the
Yeah, that
definition-
would be helpful to have in front of us, Ben, if you've got minutes that reference it. It doesn't sound like the commission ever actually formally made the definition, although maybe it did and we just aren't remembering it.
We did.
We did. And it's, I mean, like Janet said, it was back when, this is going on from August of last year.
Debbie, you are right in that it has been discussed, but it was never actually implemented into the general plan. And so Sean's suggestion is that without it being defined in the general plan, it was just a discussion only.
Mhm. So we just have to formalize it, and I think we can do both of those things at one time,
Yeah,
so
we'll formalize
bear with us.
that, and
We'll get it locked down here quickly. I know this has been a long time coming for folks out there.
So the low density is gonna get kicked down the road a little bit more to another meeting?
Just basically so we can make a definition of what that means, and then we can make a recommendation to make the changes to the map. So I'm gonna guess we can probably get it done at the next meeting.
Yeah,
That's our goal.
and then send it off to the town council then.
So we don't need to make any.
So let's table this item until the next meeting. Bring in the definitions for low, medium, and high density. And that's all we need to add to this and on the map and get it approved.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's circle
Okay,
back.
Sean Guzman, just need to make a motion to table it to the next meeting.
Okay, can I get one of that?
I make a motion that we table item 5 for the general plan map amendments to be made, be moved till next planning meeting.
That is item 6.
Item 6, yeah. We already had the public
Item
hearing,
6,
but yeah.
Right, yeah, excuse me,
Okay.
item 6.
I'll second that.
Vote,
Aye.
Aye.
aye. Lee, Win,
Leave
Aye.
aye, okay. I have it.
hang on, when,
When, I,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
I promise you, Rich and Deb, we will have this done next time. For sure. Okay, the next item on our list is 3 and 4, discussion and public hearing on amendments 10, 10, 100, recreational vehicle park zone, discussion and possible recommendation on 10, 10, 100, the recreational vehicle zone. I would like to table this at this time.
Why?
I would like to take public, I'd like public intake. Because we just discussed this at a work meeting. We didn't
Yeah,
do the language.
I think we need to discuss it in a work meeting.
Yes.
I would make a recommendation if that's what we do.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I would definitely want to have the public hearing about this.
But we want the public's input on this.
Let's hang on a second. We can open a public hearing and then have another discussion about this at a later time,
Yeah.
right?
We can get together for a work meeting.
But we can also have discussion here.
Yeah.
I'm just confused as to why we would not have that discussion here.
I don't think it's right lowering the acreage.
Well, but we can make those changes and then make the recommendation.
Yeah.
We can do that in this meeting. Why wait for another
It
meeting?
should be 10 acres.
Let's open the public hearing. That's the next agenda item.
This is Sean Guzman. I agree. Since you've advertised it, you probably have some people that might be interested in it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Go ahead and open the public hearing. You can close the public hearing and that's all you need to do. And then you can take action, table it and take action on a later date. Or you could also choose to continue the public hearing, leaving it open so you can take comment. Either way would be fine, but since you advertised it, I would move ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
So are you indicating that you can leave a public comment period open beyond the window of the meeting?
Yes, you can do that. You'll just advertise it as a public hearing and leave it open so that, and you only do that in the times when you might make significant changes and think that you'd like to have that comment occur. But otherwise, if you're not going to make significant changes or you feel like there's no need to do that, you could close the public hearing tonight and then table it and then take it up and the public hearing has already occurred and then you can consider it.
I would like to do what Sean suggested because I got quite a few emails and I've given them to Ben.
Let's just open the public hearing and then
Yeah.
let's have the discussion after, okay? Can we do that?
Let's open the public
There you go.
hearing then.
Who wants to talk about RV park zones? Right here, in the back, in the pink hat. Can you hear us?
Yeah. It's just like a regular RV park, like a KOA kind of park, or is it like, kind of like that Harrisburg, kind of where you have those, like permanent kind of?
No, it's
that's
the first sort of thing you're talking about.
KOA type
So
park.
the KOA type?
KOA type, except with no tents allowed. But you bring your RV in and,
That's your permanent.
yeah, it's an RV park, not a tent park. All right.
We have a Gordon's with a physical hand raised.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and unmute them. You're unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice glasses, by the way. I like those.
Oh, reading glasses, I'm hitting 50 this year, so. So I wrote a letter and I'm hoping I just can read it quickly here to you. I think I'll be most comfortable with that. Is that
Yeah, please.
okay? So my name's Suzanne Gordon and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, Joey Gordon, and my 2 children as well. We reside at 1644 South Manzanita Drive. We're in the Cedar Point area of Apple Valley, and we'd like to address the issue of any town planning which will potentially allow for the development of a recreational vehicle park in our area. We've been made aware that the land located just west of our property is in peril of being developed into an RV park, and we are discouraging anything that leads to this action. We first want to say that we have had prior business and personal relationships with the developers of this project, and we are on friendly terms with them. We have nothing personal against them, but we are extremely opposed to the development of an RV park that is literally right in our backyard. I mean that literally, with our house in particular. From my understanding, the recreational vehicle park zone of the Apple Valley land use, as well as the proposed amendment, does state that an RV park should not be located immediately next to a residential neighborhood. The property in question could indeed not be located any closer to our residential neighborhood. Our concerns, as well as our neighbors, include adding more vehicle and foot traffic to our neighborhood, significant water usage, nonstop transient visitors, and a huge increase in noise, light, and overall pollution. Not to mention that the resale value of our property will undoubtedly be horribly compromised by something like this. As a parent, I also want to say that I am very concerned for how this affects the safety of my family. Literally hundreds and hundreds of transient strangers would have a bird's eye view into my backyard where my children play, and a 6-foot fence will do nothing to prevent that. It should be noted that there is not a trusted track record being set with projects such as these in this area. It is a widely held opinion in this neighborhood that the development of a tiny home community just down the road from us has not been responsibly developed. It can be described as unsightly at best, and has not been developed to a high standard of quality as it was required and promised to be. And we are aware that the same developers would be involved in the building of this particular RV park. I also want to express my concern that important planning decisions are being made during this time when all members of this community may not be able to properly contribute their ideas and opinions. Not everybody has the means or knowledge to communicate through technological means such as Zoom or otherwise. I believe that the community should be able to participate in this process through face-to-face interactions, and I hope that the real decision-making can occur at a later date when this can actually be possible. A development like this will completely change this neighborhood in the worst ways. Like so many of our neighbors, we came to this particular area because of the beauty, solitude, and safety that it offers. It's a very special place, and we intend to fight to keep it that way. We urge you as planners, with all of our best interests in mind, to do whatever it takes to preserve this area as it currently is. We can't stress how strongly we encourage the members and leaders of this community to fight for and ultimately stop this unwanted and unethical project from being able to move forward. Thank you.
What was your name
Thank
again?
you. That's Suzanne Gordon.
Suzanne.
Suzanne, I appreciate those comments, and that does remind me, Russ, you're next. I do want to make clear that what we're discussing here is potential changes to the recreational vehicle park zone. We're not discussing any particular, nor do we even have any specific RV park applications in front of us.
I
So just
understand
so we're
that.
clear,
That's,
but I understand your
that,
personal
but
perspective.
We're interested in an amendment that's going to protect that from happening, because as I understand it, that is the threat of what will be happening. I know, and I understand that it's about the amendment to the
So
zoning.
if there are, I think online we published the amendment, right? So everybody has that. So
Yeah, on A, on the third
I know it's going to
paragraph.
be difficult, but try to, if we can, make your comments relevant to the amendment itself. If there are suggestions, for example, Suzanne, since you're still on the line there, do you have any suggestions about how to,
My
any
suggestion,
potential changes
because,
to the amendment
because
itself?
I'm relatively new to the issue, but my suggestion is that you, as the planning committee, do everything that you can do to keep this, something like this from happening. That's my recommendation, my expectation.
Okay, but you don't have anything specific about the language in the amendment to address?
Nothing under 10.
Well, like I said, it's a relatively new issue for me to explore.
Okay, gotcha.
But you, as the planning committee, I'm hoping will protect us from something specific like that happening.
Gotcha. All right.
So whatever language needs to be put forth in that amendment, if that's what is going to be, you know, accepted or.
Suzanne, in the third paragraph under section A,
Mhm.
it says primary location for recreational vehicle is close to Highway 59 or other major roadways.
Right.
Should not be located immediately next to a residential neighborhood.
Yes.
And we're hoping that's what protects you. We'd like to see RV under resort areas where they're larger and better fit for the RVers and for the people who live here.
Okay, yes, yes,
Okay.
I was very aware of that language, and I hope that that language does protect something specifically that's happening in this area.
We'll definitely.
In my opinion, that area that we're hearing about, this could happen, that is in our immediate neighborhood. And
Right.
it may be somebody else's opinion that it's not, but in my opinion, it is.
Okay.
And
Russ, I think you're up.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide input regarding the RV Park Ordinance 10.10.100. RV parks are incompatible with residential subdivisions. They immediately induce excessive traffic on the surface streets of the neighborhoods. As many of these RVs are toy haulers or are going to travel with ATV trailers, and according to your proposed changes, could stay for up to 60 days, and you're going to have just traffic everywhere. Over time, RV parks tend to become dilapidated, resulting in decreased property values for the adjoining residential subdivisions. I would recommend that while, yes, the residents of Cedar Point are aware of this possible RV park near its location, I would recommend a town-wide survey be conducted to obtain input from residents across the entire town, much as you did for regarding animal issues. Regarding the ordinance itself, you should never consider anything less than a 10-acre parcel or more for establishment of a proper RV park. In addition to that, I would recommend fire codes be consulted to include the local town fire marshal, county and state officials to assist with determining the maximum number of RVs per acre based upon the number of exits of the park, the width of the traffic lanes, etc. Using your proposed amendment as an example, imagine trying to get 140 RVs out of an RV park with a single entrance in the case of a fire in the adjoining area. Access roads to RV parks should be built to a UDOT highway standard, not a town residential standard, due to the volume of heavy traffic of these rigs. Many of these rigs are in the same weight category as an 18-wheeler, and you're going to have 140 of them potentially coming in and out of your park on a regular basis. A minimum 2,000-foot buffer zone should be required between an RV park and any residential subdivision, no matter where located in Apple Valley. This will help protect the property values of the residential subdivisions, limit noise into those subdivisions, and hopefully limit traffic. I would recommend extremely strict septic and sewer guidelines should be included due to the chemicals used in the RV trailer toilets. These chemicals are extremely harsh on the environment and groundwater. We recently moved back from Texas where they did not allow RV parks to dump their tanks directly into a septic system with a leach field, but rather they had to go into a pumpable tank where they couldn't contaminate groundwater. Imagine having 140 RVs all dumping their tanks into a septic system with a leach field and these chemicals going into the ground. I would definitely consult both the Southwest Public Health Department as well as the state for recommendations. I would also recommend the paragraph be modified regarding mixed-use RV, tiny home, and cabin parks
as they should meet the same requirements as a standard RV park trailer and not be allowed to have the discretion of the planning commission to modify those standards to accommodate those parks. I'll gladly entertain any questions if you might have some of us.
Thank you. That's
Thank
very
you, Ron.
well thought out and articulate. I appreciate that.
And the type of sewer systems we want to put in are in these types of parks, the commercial ones that the water company would take over once they're put in. And they dry up the sewer and then they're pumped out. So this is something that we want to get in, that they have commercial septic at these sites.
We have another comment request from Kate Van Jewel.
Okay, Kate, you're up.
I'm trying to unmute you, Kate.
You have to unmute yourself, Kate.
You have to unmute.
I unmuted myself.
There you go. We can hear you.
Thank you. I'm a newbie at this. I apologize.
Oh, that was perfect.
So I also understand that that we're talking about the lower acreage. However, I feel like the two are tied together because the reason that I understand is coming up is to allow this park to come in. So I'll be brief in the interest of time. If I may, I would just like to ask two questions of the Planning Commission. They're yes, no, so they should go quick. My question first is, in that the applicant has already done a trailer park in South Zion Estates / Cedar Point, could each of you tell me, are you happy with the appearance of that tiny home / RV park?
No.
And then
just a second here. We don't have an application pending in front of us, so I don't know that we have any business commenting about an application since there isn't one pending.
Then can I ask you, I do just like to know how you guys feel. Are you happy with the appearance of that park, that tiny home park that's in Cedar Point?
No.
No.
I don't have an opinion, actually. Sorry.
For gypsy camp.
I can appreciate the fact that many people aren't happy with it.
Don't think it's an eyesore, and I appreciate that and understand that.
Kate, did you have another question?
I just had a follow-up question. I just wanted to ask, do you feel like it's an asset to our subdivision?
No.
No.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I have to agree with you.
Anybody else?
Archie's got her hand up.
Well, she's commented already.
She commented.
Let's give a chance to other people, if you don't mind, please. And
Does anybody else out at Cedar Point have a comment?
and it doesn't have to be just Cedar Point. Let's be clear, we do
Yeah.
not have an application pending in front of the Planning Commission.
No.
Let me clarify myself here a little bit on this 8-acre change. I
I don't know why my video is not working.
I don't feel like we want to get huge trailer parks in our area. I think Russ's comment on, trying to move 150 trailers out of a lot would be very hard to do. I was trying to scale it down to a smaller size and not get over 15 acres as maximum. When you get over 150 units, you get traffic galore. And, the other comments on the area where something like this could be put in, definitely residential is a problem.
Sure, I agree.
Especially when you're looking at a roundabout that is right at the entrance of that
Yeah,
whole thing.
I agree.
It doesn't make sense.
I agree.
I agree.
All right, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering why in this amendment you were making it eight acres versus the 10 acres.
And I think, yeah, that was what Jerry just.
That's just something that.
Thank you.
And that's what I was just talking about, is trying to keep the whole thing smaller than saying 10 to 50 acres, and somebody wants to put in a 50-acre one and have 3,000 trailers there.
Well, if you did something larger, then you could do more like a park that would have 3 or 4 entrances.
That's
And
right.
then have a lane to drive up to, and then have a clubhouse, a pool, showers, and all that, have an RV.
We're still in the
resort.
public comment. Let's get that out of the way.
Comment from the cops,
Yeah,
From the cops?
Paul.
Debbie or Rich.
Oh.
Yeah, hi, this is Rich. Rich Cobb.
Hey.
I think the thought at the time was to keep the parcels larger. This way we don't have, say, 20, 30 small RV parks and try and consolidate them into one good area where traffic and distance to residential area wouldn't be a problem. I agree with what Russell had said, that we seem to have surveys for everything out here to try and see what the public's mindset is. I mean, we all realize that it's zoned as commercial. We all came in here with that thought, but you know, we would like if we could possibly control what would go into that section over there. And I think the public's input would be beneficial to the town's thinking.
All right.
This is why I think this should be tabled.
Thank you.
I'd like to at least to have a chance for us to have discussion.
Alan?
Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yeah, please. When?
Tish Lisenby.
Oh, Tish. I'm sorry. I was looking at, there you go.
That's okay.
I can't see you.
So in section E is an elephant, number 8, you talk about park models. Those are permanent fixtures. I suggest we don't have park models in an RV resort. Number 9 talks about privacy fence or wall.
But no, wait a second.
Town standards. Need to change the verbiage to that.
Wait, I want to go back to your first one. As I read this, we mean park
On
model.
F3, you're talking about curb and gutter.
Oh.
Inside an RV park. I question whether that's necessary.
No.
Blacktop only would be maybe more efficient and more practical. Because curb and gutter is going to have the water going where?
That's what I said before was.
F7, the stay for 7 days, and then they can't return until 30 days later. An example would be somebody stays here, goes to Zion's, packs up, leaves, goes to Grand Canyon, comes back. Now they can't come back for 30 days. That just, it's a little fuzzy.
No, I think you got to, the way it reads is
F9
you can stay for a
has a
maximum.
temporary parking area for 12 feet. Most RVs and trailers are a whole lot bigger than 12 feet. So
No,
that needs
again,
to be
that's just
changed
the way to do the math,
appropriately.
Tish.
Consider a 38-foot fifth wheel and a 14-foot truck. You're going to need a little more than 12 feet.
So can you hear me, Tish, or not?
Otherwise, they're going to be parked out in the
Apparently not.
street.
You can't hear him.
Can you not hear me?
And then
Tish?
G talks about a subdivision. I'm not sure where that comes in.
Tish, can you hear us?
All right.
Let her get out.
And hopefully RV parks are not going to be a subdivision.
Right.
And that is
Alright.
my input.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, Tish, even though you can't hear us. Does anybody else have any input on this at this time? Because we're still going to work on this.
Oh, looks like Galen's iPhone has a comment.
Okay, Galen.
Yes, I do. I would just like to support what Russ said about having at least 2 entrances for safety. And I believe that you should specify a distance that such a park should exist from a residential area.
Mm-hmm. Great comment. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, this was taken, from a work meeting, and I don't think it was completely, there's not a consensus among the members themselves.
We didn't do a work meeting on this.
Yeah, we did.
I wasn't there.
This was,
yeah, you were.
this was your
Yeah, remember we started here.
Well,
March 11th, we did this.
Anybody else have public comment?
If not, I'm gonna close the public comment,
All right.
okay?
If you don't mind, we still have one, phone caller in. I'm just gonna
okay.
unmute. 1996 phone number. Do you have any public comments on this issue? Muted again.
Okay, so we're gonna close comments?
Yes, we're gonna close public comments at this time. We would like to table this to further work on this.
I mean, is there no, we can certainly table it, but can we have a discussion now and maybe have it brought back with a new draft so we can actually
Yes,
make a recommendation next time?
You and I have talked about this, and I think that's right, that it should be a quarter mile from residential areas.
Mm-hmm.
I like Terry's, that they need a large lane for check-in, so that they're not hanging out on the highway or in commercial or in residential
Can't be
areas.
on any residential or commercial
Yeah.
street.
Yeah, I think too,
And it's gotta be 10 acres.
I honestly feel like this should be bigger.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more like 15 as a minimum.
Yeah.
I can appreciate the spirit, Jerry, of what you were trying to do, where you don't want these big, monstrosities that lead to traffic issues. But I feel like we can deal with the traffic issue, and
resort.
at least from my perspective, having fewer, larger, more sort of professionally run operations is better than having
2 or 3 small.
Boy, you put it down to 8 acres, and you're going to have them all over the place.
Yeah.
And that to me is a bigger traffic problem. When you got people turning in to multiple locations on and off the highway, I'd kind of rather see them be larger, and then we can make some very specific restrictions. Again, these are just comments,
Yeah.
but personal preference. I do think that we should define what proximity to residential means. I think a minimum of 1,000 linear feet. Somebody suggested 2,000. I think that's open to debate, but I don't think that, it feels like anything less than about 1,000 feet or so. What's that? That's that's a little bit under a quarter mile. That you're imagine that you're 500 feet from a residential area and it's check-in time, and now you've got RVs blocking your entrance into your development. That just doesn't strike me as reasonable.
That doesn't work. And they have to have enough room allocated on their property to handle about 25% of their total number of vehicles.
Checking in and out.
Checking in and out
I agree.
at any
Yeah,
one time.
yeah, I agree with that.
So 8 acres just is not gonna work.
Yeah, I think I can appreciate the spirit of what you're trying to do there, but I feel like, we have an opportunity here, since we don't have these yet, to make sure that when we do,
We have nice
they're
ones.
good quality.
They're good quality.
And that they don't have a negative effect on the quality of life, particularly related to traffic.
Yeah.
And of course, if you happen to live in close proximity to one, then having 1,000 or 2,000 feet buffer is probably reasonable.
Yeah.
Papa Bear, I see your hand raised, but we're not in public comment anymore. Sorry about that.
So we'll just,
So can we, since Jerry did the original draft, can you take these comments and suggestions back and kind of bring us another go at it?
Okay.
I actually created a document I think I shared earlier with you today.
I couldn't read it.
Oh,
It wouldn't come up on my system.
and Jerry, I'll send you, I have recommendations also that I'll send you on your Gmail account.
if you want me
especially
to
about the
email
sewer.
it, I can email it to you as a
Okay.
document.
That'd
That's
be good.
better, yeah, that'd be great.
Right.
Um,
Opening it in Google.
And I'm painfully aware of the fact that since Lee and Wen are online, it's not as easy for you all to talk. So, unmute yourself and let's hear from you. right?
You
Yep,
hear
we
me?
got you. Yep.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you've been talking about. I just comments I had was on the curb and gutter. I agree with Tisha. He's trying to get things where that water moves off the property.
You're kind of, can you talk right into the microphone? We're sort of catching every other word here.
Yeah, I wonder if I knew where it was.
It'll be really nice so we can all get together again.
Yeah, it sure would be a lot easier.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're coming in a little better now.
Maybe I just need to speak down a little bit. The curb and gutter, I think anytime you channel that water somewhere, it's got to go to retention or something. You do it in maybe a apartment that isn't needed. And so,
We're still catching about every other word. I don't know that we got a bad connection, maybe.
I would
Yeah.
recommend that people email members of the planning commission with questions and suggestions so that we can make this a community effort to make this something really nice for ourselves and that we can all live with. And so if you'll email us at our Gmail accounts for the town, and I've gotten quite a few, and I've turned them into Ben, and I've read them all, appreciate all, I know how you feel. And we need to work on this, and commercial septic, I think, is something we need to work on, so it doesn't go into the groundwater. Having the buffer zone from the, from residential has to be larger, RV parks, RV resorts, to say, done by professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that is what we need to do.
Okay. Wen, did you have something? I'm sorry, Lee, we just couldn't make out what you were saying. I'm sure it was really articulate, though. Wen, you're on mute still, I think. There we go.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with the suggestion that we should have probably a 15-acre
Yeah.
minimum rather than, I think 8 is just too small. I could probably live with 10 or 12, but I think 15 would be more ideal. I also like the suggestion of having a 1,000-foot buffer zone between an RV park and a residence or a residential neighborhood.
And that was a little arbitrary when I said it. I mean, I thought of that because my house is about 1,000 feet off the road, and that seems like that's a nice long hike when you're taking the garbage bins down to the road. But
Right.
maybe that's too close. What do you guys think
I was
about
thinking
that?
25 meters, that was quarter mile.
That's about a half a mile, right? Yeah. That seems. I don't know. What do you guys think? Lee, Wen, Jerry, what do you think is a reasonable number?
Ellen, I would say that's probably the minimum I would.
Yeah. What do you guys think if we made it 1,500? Again, we want to, and those of you who've lived here a long time, you can probably imagine parcels where this might go. I want to make sure we're not preventing us from ever having an RV park by making it.
Well, the thing is, you're never going to have that much vacant space forever. Something's going to build next.
Sean has his hand raised.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, my only comment, this is Sean Guzman, is that is to clarify if you're talking about 1,000-foot radius from the nearest actual RV spot, or are you talking 1,000-foot radius from the property? Because you always have to look at the differences between the two. You might have a property that's got an odd shape and it might jut out in a corner, and that they want to use that for open space or for their playground or something of that nature. And if you're drawing a radius from any property line, then that could really cause a problem for them in developing it.
Yeah.
If you're really trying to mitigate the impacts of the actual park itself, it may be from any structure or RV pad.
Okay, that's a good note. Maybe while you're on that subject, I wonder, do you have any experience in defining residential area? To me, is it a single residence, or is it a place where there's multiple home. I mean, Sean, do you have any recommendation about how we define that in the most
Yes.
appropriate terms?
Yes, we generally use any residential area because what you're trying to do is mitigate the impacts to people who actually live there, have their families there. So whether it's a multi-unit housing or single family housing, you still just classify it as a residential zone. Typically what we do is rather than put a radius from a building or a structure, that's only done for like liquor stores or liquor outlets or generally for things like that. What we do is have a built-in buffer. So you would say if your RV park abuts a residential zone, then you have to have a 100-foot setback or whatever it may be, 50-foot setback that will be landscaped or some kind of buffer zone. But a radius would also work if you identify the structure or pad.
So it's appropriate to just say residential zone, and that covers us regardless
Absolutely.
of whether it's single family or okay, gotcha.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you for those notes. Marty, you had your hand up.
I sure do. I was just thinking, what do you do with that 1,000-foot in between the properties? So if you have an RV park come in and they're going to have this 1,000-foot buffer, are you taking that 1,000 feet and making it a wasteland? Because, at some point in the future, as things build up, it could be some guy wants to come in and put houses there. Well, if the RV park's there already, at least, you have that built in there that they know what they're building next to, compared to another housing, subdivision that, like existing Cedar Point doesn't have a choice. That all of a sudden that's a commercial property and we're going to put an RV park there. And I just think that there's a problem when we consider saying you're going to have to put 1,000 feet in between you and the neighbors when, maybe it is just that 100-foot buffer zone that comes off of their property that they have to, put dense trees and, basically build a forest in between the properties for that 100 feet to help create that buffer zone where no RVs can be parked at.
Yeah.
And
I think that
1,000 feet.
The way I was thinking of it, and maybe it's naive, but I was thinking that the 1,000 feet is either area that's currently undeveloped or it's included in the acreage of the park itself. Now, if it's included in the acreage of the park itself, then we're covered based on what you just said. But if it's undeveloped already, that sort of solves its own problem, because if after a park's there, somebody wants to build there,
They know it.
they know it, right? That's not a problem for us.
But mostly it's going to be commercial next to them. It's not going to be residential. It's going to be in an area that we're basically looking at commercial type property anyway. And if somebody wants to build a convenience store next to it.
But see, that's, as far as I can tell, that's not creating the potential nuisance that an RV park would, right? So if somebody builds in a commercial buffer zone that happens to be between the RV park and the residence, they want to put a convenience store. I don't imagine that if it's already zoned commercial,
Right.
I don't imagine the neighbors are going to be too upset about that. It's just that because that's not creating.
Most of the areas that we want to put any of these units in is going to be near commercial areas.
Yeah.
They're not going to be near any residential areas.
Right. Most of them. I think I take your note, Marty. I think we'll have to come up with some language that makes it very specific.
It's just something to consider. It's I still agree that we don't want them right next to neighborhoods anyway. I can just see that that's creating this 1,000-foot no man's land, and what are we going to do about that, and how does that get mitigated? I just want some thought put into it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you for pointing that out.
This is one project we need to go through again when we can get together and work.
Yeah, I think Jerry already agreed to kind of take another shot at it, right?
Yeah.
And
I'll definitely have some recommendations, especially on the sewer.
well, you've heard all the comments, and we'll forward you our stuff. I'd love to come, at least if we can get a pretty close to final draft for our next meeting, we could probably go ahead and make a recommendation based
Yeah.
on that. I don't know that we need another whole work session on it.
I agree.
Look forward to
So,
meeting.
yeah, and I'm sure you took notes when people made comments. Okay, good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna close public
Thanks.
comments. There's no more. Okay, we're gonna move on to number 7, the dreaded shipping container.
So I want to make a motion that we table, before we do that, Janet, that we table
Recreational vehicle.
the 10.10.100 recommendation for a future meeting.
Second, yeah, I agree. Can we have a vote on that, please?
Aye.
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 When I,
Thank you. Okay, so anyone that has Lee and Wynn, if you have.
Lee, do you want to do a quick aye or nay on that?
Yeah, I got an eye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna go to number 7, the discussion of possible recommendation of 1028 235 accessory buildings and accessory general use. This is on the shipping containers. We have been working on this for 2.5 years. We have had hand votes, we have had polls, and I think the language that we've come up with is good. 68% of the people in this town want shipping containers. I do not feel that I want to change that they are not necessarily painted the same as the house, because some houses are painted very bright. And so I'd like the natural surrounding area that the shipping containers be painted an earth tone or blend to your lot using browns, greens, and corals. But other than that, this has been a thorn in the planning commission side for 2.5 years.
Mhm.
It needs to go.
I have a few suggestions.
Yes.
The language is pretty good, pretty clear. I think that I do agree with making that it makes sense to be a little bit more specific about color.
Yeah.
The way the language reads now, you could plant purple flowers in your garden and then say, hey, that
No.
matches the surrounding area, so I'm going to paint it
Brown,
purple. You can't do it.
green. You go up to
Um,
Richard's Cops place, new place. They got 2 big ones there. You can't even see them
Yeah.
because they're nice dark greens.
So it also occurred to me that we have language in, I think it's earlier in this ordinance already, right? 10.10.050
Yeah.
that references how close together accessory buildings can be.
Yes.
I'd like to add that in to just make a reference here that wherever appropriate to put this in, that the shipping containers should be subject to that same,
SABLU 10-25.
no, 10-10.050 EB.
B3.
So
Doesn't item H make that statement, accessory building shall comply with requirements of adopting building code, is that one?
which one?
H, item H under.
Item H.
I don't have an H, I have a,
I don't have H
But-
either.
So the.
oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Chapter 28, section 230, where H says accessory buildings shall comply with the requirements of the adopted building code as applicable. I think for clarity, it would be a good idea because shipping containers are almost being treated uniquely in this scenario.
Yeah.
We're
Like
creating a new code,
accessory.
so it would be a good idea to.
I just think it'd be nice to reference that accessory building code, because what we don't want to have, I think the spirit of this is people want to be able to use them for a variety of purposes, but mostly storage, right? But what we don't want to have is people lining them up end to end and making fencing and that kind of
Not being
stuff.
used as barriers, not being used as fences.
That's
So if we can add that and it specifically references containers located in RE zones. So, I had made a similar observation to you that rather than having them sort of being open subjectively to interpretation relative to color, we
Yeah.
might want to make some more strong language that suggests
They have to blend.
if you've got a pink
You're right.
house, we don't want your shipping container colored pink.
No, that's why I suggested that we take out or as primary residence structure, strike that and put in earth tones, examples, greens, browns, and corals, or blending colors. Because I think that's a pretty strong definition.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have one out at your house and you could do it a brown and I wouldn't see it from my place, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it would just blend in.
But if I painted it the color of my house, it would look fine.
Yeah, it would.
So,
But your house isn't bright yellow.
but what I'm saying is, the language I came up with was that
Uh-huh.
it says with containers must be painted to match the primary residential structure, or in cases where the primary residential structure is a vivid color,
Yeah.
the container must be painted an earth tone containing the color brown.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Okay.
I'll agree with that. And on number 3, I had people that were concerned about shipping containers being used as primary residence. I sent some examples to Ben on what these places look like.
Mhm.
Now,
And I made a suggested change for that covers it, I think. I'd like to strike number 3 altogether. Because I don't think we have any business discussing residential use in a code that's really designed to
For
talk about shipping
storage.
containers about storage.
Yeah,
okay.
that should be, you know, strictly under a code.
But what we could do is say, add an item D that says something like, unless approved by the Community Commission and accompanied by all the required materials,
Yeah.
shipping
standard
containers may
engineer
not
structural
be
drawing.
used as living
Ben,
space.
you got the
Can I
picture?
get my comment out? Sorry, but I was in the middle of a sentence.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What I'm suggesting is that unless we add an item D that says, unless approved by the Planning Commission and accompanied by stamped engineering drawings and other submittals as required by town staff and building inspectors, comma, shipping containers may not be used as living space.
Okay.
That makes it clear that
does
you're not
make
going
it
to
clear.
put a storage unit and live in it.
Yeah.
Then we address the whole other building a residence on
Now,
it
how did-
separately.
how
Does that
did
sound
you-
good?
We've got,
How'd you word the last to that?
This-
I've got it written down here. I can actually, well, I forwarded it. Well, you don't have your computer.
No, I don't have my computer sits on my desk.
Okay.
that,
Forward it to me, and, I sent some pictures to Ben as to what they actually look like, and they're quite nice.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just
Yeah.
think that's a separate issue altogether. That's basically residential discussion,
It's,
right?
Okay, so
Yeah,
we could strike 3 altogether. But,
item A3.
A3,
Yeah, that open-end deal on 5 acres or more, non-restricted, I would like that to say 1 per acre.
1 per acre.
Yeah, if we give an open end on that, that again does what this.
20 or 40 footer.
Yeah, I was trying to remember why we left that so open. We had the discussion.
Yes, we did.
And we all seemed to agree on it. And then
later.
later I'm going, do we really want to just leave it?
No.
No.
So here's I think now I'm running, as I was saying, I think I'm remembering why. Because we basically said the limits are baked into the setbacks and the degree to which you can't put
Yeah.
them in close proximity to
Yeah.
each other. So your limits are baked in, even though we're not setting a number limit, right? Because you can only have so many if you're following the appropriate setbacks and you're not stacking them end to end. You have to be no closer than 10 feet from each other.
Right. That's an awful lot on 5 acre piece of property.
Well, I suppose it is, but I mean, how do we decide what's too many? That's the thing. If I sort of felt like the setbacks would determine it for us, but maybe we want to make a limit. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can I make a comment that this is Sean?
Yeah, Sean.
I'm sorry, I've had my hand raised. So if I'm backtracking, I apologize. But this is Sean Guzman for the record. The state laws have been changed significantly over the last few years to take away that subjectivity that we're discussing tonight. For example, I don't know what a vibrant color is, but without it being defined in the code as a color, it's going to make it very difficult to enforce. What is really the easiest is to go back to your primary structure. And I understand the comment that says somebody can have an ugly color for their home, but that's true. And if your primary structure is a color that someone doesn't like, the fact that your storage unit or accessory building matches that color doesn't really do any more harm. But what it does do is it takes away that subjectivity that someone on staff may just say, I don't like that color, I think it's vibrant, where other people don't think it's vibrant. And then a court has to decide what's vibrant and what isn't. So those are the things that we want to avoid in the ordinance. Some of the subjectivity on staff deciding on the residential end also is something you want to avoid. You'd simply say that if they were going to use it as a residence, then it has to meet all building codes, applicable building codes, and leave it at that. And and the last comment was also very good on the open-ended, the number of units, because if the whole goal here is to allow someone to be able to use it for storage, and someone has 20 acres, if they have 20 of these on their property, then you have to ask yourself, what are they using that property for?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a business? You know, are they doing storage units? And just decided that I've got 20 acres sitting here, so it's a way to make some money. And I think that you probably do need to identify what the maximum you would allow on a site, because you really are talking, it sounds to me like just an accessory building to a residence where everybody has their junk, they want to get out of their garage, and that's what your primary goal is, if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, we definitely don't want to, yeah.
I'm not gonna tell
We
somebody.
definitely don't want to be vague. We can
No,
help
we
it.
don't.
Somebody puts
No, we leave it the way it was.
10 of
Said
them
it's-
if they put 10 on an acre and turn them into storage units and start renting them out.
No,
No, what I'm hearing you say, Sean, I think, is that we should place an upper limit.
Yes,
Otherwise, we're just opening ourselves up to
yes.
further problems. So
correct, and it sounds like from what I'm understanding and from what I'm reading, is you're really talking about using these for just an accessory storage to your main dwelling, where you put your bikes and your lawnmowers and your toy haulers, or I guess it's too small for a toy hauler, but you put in those odds and ends that you just want to get out of your garage. It isn't intended to be, a very large number of storage units there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like on 20 acres, it's 4 or 5. 4 would probably be sufficient for 40 footers. Because that would fill in with your setbacks.
I'm just, all of a sudden, I'm realizing,
And not having them as fences aren't in here either.
Sounds like we have quite a few changes, kind of that, Alan, maybe you should head up the rewording.
yeah, I suppose I can make another shot at it. I was hoping it would be easy and we could make them here, but I think maybe we should take another shot at it, and I can bring it back next time.
Because there's things missing. They shouldn't be used as barriers. They shouldn't be used as fences. And people have done that, and they don't paint them, and they look terrible.
Well, the setbacks would prevent,
That's not in here, so. And I'd like to see in there.
Debbie Kopp had a comment, she wanted to make for the record that, to clarify, they have 1, not 2. So 1 is a shed.
Oh, I love theirs. Theirs is beauty. You can't even tell that they're there.
All right, I'll make another attempt at the language to get rid of some of the vagaries. And what do you guys think about the total limit? Should we just set an upper limit regardless of lot size? I mean, you know, Sean has a point there that we're,
Yeah.
I was
they
sort of
can't-
feeling
they
like
can't have that.
the
They
setbacks
can't
were-
have unlimited.
You know, if we've got single acres, limited to one,
Yes.
well, we got 140 or 220s.
you know, so.
So we got 40 feet of them.
If we limit them to 140 per acre, you know, that's,
Well, we have it here, between 1 and 5 acres. So under an acre, you can only have one that's no bigger than 20.
mhm.
And then between 1 and 5, we're giving you a limit of 40 total feet. So I wonder, I mean, should we just make it more than 5? Should we, I mean, we could just pop it up one more and make it 60 total feet.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think.
Do you
that's
need more?
good.
I don't want to be punitive. Can
No,
somebody
I-
think of a case where you've got 28? I mean, I suppose if you've got 28, you might want to put 4 of them on various places around your property.
Yeah.
So you don't have to
Um,
walk around so far.
You know, if you were breaking
So-
40 acres up into, areas for different animals.
Yeah,
You might want to have
have-
storage for each one.
So maybe then, maybe we should, if it's above, I'll figure it out. I'll do some math and we'll figure it
I have
out.
my original notes on this that's different from the language that's come out.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and
Yeah, send it to me.
you.
And this is Sean. What I would say again is, look at what your goal is in allowing these. If it's just an accessory building, then would you allow someone, for example, to put 4 different accessory buildings on their lot? And if you're saying, yeah, we have no problem with that, then that's fine. If you're saying it really is just an accessory to the main use of that property, which is a residence in this case, then do you need to have 4 of those or 10 of those or whatever it may be?
I think that'd be up to.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not quite as cut and dry. People use them, people would use them for a variety of purposes. So, I mean, you could you know, keep your tack in it. You could keep your Christmas decorations. I mean, it could be a whole variety. You know, if you've got a large acreage, you might have a need for a variety of those. Yeah. I think yeah. What we don't want to do is have them become shipping container villages. That's for sure.
The mayor
That's
also
very
thinking
clear.
there maybe is fire code related, coding that requires 10-foot spacing, so another thing to look into.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
but I
putting
don't
that in anyway, so I think we're covered.
Are we gonna have public comments on this?
We did a long time ago already. Yeah.
I've got a couple of things I would like to just add to it that it's coming to my area, if I may, just interject.
Sure.
Just this knowledge.
Yeah.
You both up there made a comment that when you were out at Bubbling Wells, there was one out there, okay? And you couldn't see it, basically, because I've been out there like
Yeah.
yourself. And then, well, if you living so far back there, you wouldn't be able to see his shipping container. 2 comments. Where I live, I could stand on my driveway, and with the vacant lots, I would be able to see 6 shipping containers of 40 foot. That's the first comment. Second comment is, I got a lot. It's an acre lot. So just for the hell of it, I'll just put a shipping container on that vacant lot across the road. That's another comment you could do with all the 40 lots out there. The other comment, Payton. Payton, we have a house that was just being built, and it's a white house. You can't do anything about that with CCRs.
Yeah.
But we would have a white container facing me. Now, I'm only talking about the containers on my driveway. Out my kitchen window, I'll be able to see 3 shipping containers. Worst scenario. So that's an issue. Last comment, they're for storage.
Yes.
Well, they're not for storage. I have shipping containers out there. We have 2 40-footers. They've got their snowmobiles and all their junk beside them. So it just, sometimes it creates more junk. And then we got another shipping container, the one that came from your area.
That was, yeah, I know, it got painted 3 days after they set it down on that lot.
Yeah, it's not painted to the color of the house.
No,
Now,
I know.
If we do the code, he'll have to repaint it to the color of the house.
Yeah,
But it's not totally using it for storage. They use it for stacking things up against. I hate to look at Gooseberry from 10 years ago, and it's so cluttered now, it's not appealing to me, to a lot of people. I'm just saying there's a lot of issues with shipping containers and what they're used for, and the areas you mentioned.
I can't believe there's a 40-footer going into the side of a cliff.
So a couple things. One is,
Those are.
and maybe we need to clarify this. One of the things you pointed out,
Yeah.
we sort of, it was an assumption I made, but it wasn't explicit in the amendment, and that is that a container is an accessory building, and an accessory building has to accessorize the primary residence. You can't just plop an accessory building on an empty lot.
Okay.
I mean, we have that in the ordinance about accessory buildings. We didn't make that explicit about containers. I think we need to.
Yeah.
Because there, as I see it, this amendment allowing containers was to address the fact that they were disallowed in the accessory building ordinance.
And I actually, as a code enforcer, we had one evicted because it was on a vacant lot.
Yeah, and I think the spirit of this was, the intent was, it's an accessory building. It's not its own standalone.
We have something in there that said that
We
could be put on during construction, but they had to be removed.
Yeah, we had that originally. I think.
The original language I would think so.
All right, I'll make a shot at updating this based on our discussion here. Thank you for your input on that, Rich.
The paper I handed you is what I would like, what I was wanting to start with, that we've worked through 3 planning commissions.
Okay, well, and I think you probably had this when we did the working meeting, right? So, all right, I think we got close. We just didn't quite nail it.
No.
So I'd like to make a motion that we not make a recommendation today, but we table this until the next meeting where we can look at updated language.
Okay, I second that. Can we have a vote, please?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
So I think all we have to do now is approve some minutes, right?
Yes. And I didn't find any problems. And so can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
That's March 11th,
March
2020.
11th. Yes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Vote?
Aye.
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 Can I get a motion for adjournment, please?
Make a motion that we close our meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you, everybody.
Can we get a vote?
Right.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you all for showing up. That wasn't easy.
Really, that's interesting.
Good evening.
Okay. Oof.
April, what's the date today?
I can feel the coronavirus getting in my lungs already.